Hey everyone, Church of STFU. In RockingMrE's latest video on Is the State Necessary, he asked for people to do the political compass and post the results, and I've been meaning to do that for a while anyways. These are my results. So, as you can see, I am a bloody commie. In very brief, I'm going to go into what my views actually are on government and where we should go. And this is going to be a fairly fact-free zone in that I'm not really going to talk about any reasons for why I believe these things to be true or valid. I will try to talk in later videos about the justification for my beliefs and why I think the system I envisage is realistic. So the first thing to say is I am pretty much on board with the idea that the state, especially how it's running now, is outdated, outmoded, and should be gotten rid of. Where I disagree with some anarchists, at least, is what I think we do need is organization on every level. On a local level, on a kind of regional level, and on a global level. Note I didn't say national, because I think the idea of nations is bullshit and we can get rid of that. But yeah, I think there needs to be organization, because there are problems that are bigger than the individual, then there are problems that are bigger than the local community, there are problems that are bigger than whatever regional community you have, and there are problems that actually need to be addressed by all human beings. So I think the aspect of the state that we need to maintain somehow is organization. And I think we can do that through various direct democracy mechanisms, a decision-making process that kind of bubbles up from the grassroots. What I don't want to keep is control. I think governments, one of their main features is that they control the population, and this is a top-down kind of thing. And I think that is a very bad thing, and I think we need to get rid of that aspect of it. And I think historically, this control aspect was sometimes in a way justified because of the poor education and the inability of people on the bottom to really rule themselves. But I think that's all the more reason to get the world into a shape where we can completely get rid of the idea of a controlling government, of a government or state or system that has people, individuals, that exercise control over us. So I think that systems fail. I think it's inevitable that a system left to its own will always fail, even if it's a great system. I think systems cannot in the long run succeed because human beings are smarter than systems. And someone will outsmart the system. So one way people have tried to run systems is by just appointing some moral dear leader. Some perfect, great person that can rule over us forever. Or at least for some term. And this has always failed. Obviously it failed in Nazi Germany. It failed religion, who have elected many leaders that were not good. And I don't want to compare the Pope to Hitler, but do I want him as my leader? No. And it's still failing us in democracies right now, because of the way that we decide not on issues, but we decide to elect people. And those people will then, again, be dear leaders except for a certain period of time. And yes, there are checks and balances, but those are again made up of people. And no, I'm not saying that Bush is Hitler. But I think he's another example of a person that does not have a strong claim to having been an ethically sound president. The next problem with systems is people, also many anarchists, always want to look for the system that is the solution. So rather than relying on a person, they want to have a system that can sustainably distribute power and justice and prevent abuse of power and justice. And I think it fails because people are smarter than systems again. People can manipulate systems, people can gain dominance in any system, and once that happens, that system is basically going to fail in keeping those people in check. And that's why systems aren't good enough. Capitalism isn't good enough. I think capitalism, the free market, is failing right now. It's failing us on a very human level in many, many ways. Communism, the idea of a vanguard party, of a system that was comprised of certain leading lights, failed us. And even justice, even laws, even the very foundation of our society for so many hundreds of years will still fail. What protects our rights? And laws, again, cannot protect our rights. The idea that we can base a system on laws and that will maintain our basic rights is laughable, because those laws can be changed, and they will be changed. Eventually someone will, through some method, whether it's economic or political, gain enough power to change those laws. So ultimately, the only true guardian of justice is our fellow citizen. That is the only one that in the end can truly protect us from the abuses of any kind of system that we might come up with. There's no perfect system, and what that means is that if you rely on the system, someone will find a way to crack it, and we will either start from square one or take several steps backward and have to then try to rectify the problem with the system, which is always only a temporary solution. So what is my feeling idea about it, which, as I said, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail in this video. But there are two things which I think are important, and they're also interlocking. The first is to distribute all power, and to make the accumulation of any form of power, whether it's political or economic, as difficult and disrespectable as possible, so that actually society as a whole, individual people, will fight against anyone who tries to accumulate power. And as much as possible, an equal playing field is maintained. Accumulation of power, many people, especially many people who believe in very libertarian forms of social organization like myself, there is a very large crowd that believes that political accumulation of power is terrible, but economic accumulation of power is acceptable or even good, and this can be a reasonable way of running the world. And I disagree with that strongly. Getting economic or political power to any large extent will make the further acquisition of power easier. And this really leads to a kind of compounding effect, where eventually a small group of people will have an overwhelming power advantage over the majority. And this is very, very bad and will lead to system failure. And just because so far we've kind of made progress, and when this has occurred, we've usually come up with some kind of revolution to combat the repressive nature of the regime, does not mean that this will go on forever. We could reach a stage of 1984-esque kind of power distributions, where if we don't get to a better system quickly enough, we will actually be enslaved forever or for however long humanity goes on. So I think this is a very important issue. But of course, making the acquisition of any form of power difficult socially won't work unless we educate people. Because people can weasel word their way around any social norms we have to that effect. I think people, everyone, every single one of us needs to be educated. And I'm not talking about education for a job. They need to be politically educated, and they need to be educated in ethics. And I'm not talking about a particular ethical system here. I have my own beliefs. I know what makes sense to me. But people need to be taught to think freely, to think rationally, and to identify good ideas, and then we need to present them with the ideas, and they need to be able to choose amongst those ideas. Without this, I think there is no hope for any system that we come up with to succeed in the long run. Any system without the educated population will degenerate. Power will accumulate in the hands of elites, be they political elites or economic elites, or as it is right now, a mixture of both. Political and economic elites often being the same people, and or playing into each other's hands. And I think ultimately that is the only way that we can move to a better, healthier society. Anyways, this was Church of SCFU. I will see you guys all later. Peace out.